started on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where everything feels still and predictable. Until it isn't. I was running late. I had meant to pick up my son, Miles, earlier, but I'd gotten caught up finishing some reports for work. It had been a long week, and I was already carrying that low, tired kind of weight that sits behind your eyes and doesn't really go away. Miles had spent the night at my mom's. She loves having him over, says he brings life back into the house, and I was grateful for the help. Things at home had felt tense lately. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something had shifted between me and my wife. She'd been distant, shorter with her words, more glued to her phone than usual. But I wasn't thinking about any of that as I pulled into my mom's driveway. I just wanted coffee and maybe a few hours of peace. Miles came running out before I could even knock. He had his backpack slung over one shoulder, a Lego guy clutched in his hand, and mismatched socks. Classic. He's 6. The world's still big and magical to him, and he talks like every thought that enters his head has to come out right then and there. We buckled in, and I was just starting to pull out of the driveway when he hit me with it. "Dad," he said, voice light like he was asking what was for lunch. "Why was Mom in the bedroom with Uncle Alex yesterday if you were at work?" I paused with my hand still on the gear shift. "What?" He looked up at me, totally unaware of the bomb he had just dropped. "I came back home yesterday to get my Lego guys. Grandma let me. Remember? Mom was home, and I went to my room, but then I heard something, so I looked in your room. Mom was sitting on top of Uncle Alex on your bed." He said it like it was nothing, like he'd walked in on her doing a yoga pose or reading a book. Just facts, plainly delivered. I stared at him through the rearview mirror. "Are you sure it was Uncle Alex?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. He nodded. "Yeah." He had his big beard, and he was wearing a red hoodie, the one with the white strings. "Alex, my friend. My wife's funny old buddy from back in college. The one she swore was like a brother." I felt something rise in my throat, something sharp and sickening, but I didn't let it show. Not to him. "What happened after that?" I asked. "She saw me, and she got off and came to the door real fast. She said I wasn't supposed to be there and told me to go wait in the kitchen. She looked mad, but not like really mad, just weird. Then she closed the door." I didn't say anything. My fingers were gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. I don't remember the drive home. I was just running on muscle memory. I kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, this little boy who still believed the world made sense, who thought Mom and Dad were unbreakable. He went straight to his room when we got home, probably sensing something was off. I stood in the hallway, looking at the bedroom door like it was a loaded G***N. She was in the kitchen when I walked in. Hair up, bathrobe on. A mug of tea in her hand like it was any other lazy Sunday. She glanced up and smiled, like everything was normal. I didn't even bother easing into it. "Hey," I said. "Miles said he came home yesterday and saw you in the bedroom with Alex. Said you were sitting on top of him." She blinked. A half-second of silence. Then the laugh came. That light, dismissive kind of laugh she always used when she wanted to brush something off. "Oh my God. Are you serious?" she said, rolling her eyes. "Is this what we're doing now? You're taking what a 6-year-old says at face value?" I didn't respond. She set the mug down and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Alex came over to fix the shelf in the closet. Okay?" Kept leaning, and I was tired of waiting for you to do it. "He stopped by, I was in my pajamas, and your son obviously walked in at the worst time and misunderstood what he saw." Her tone was so calm, so rational. "You're saying he imagined sitting on top of him?" She scoffed. "I'm saying he doesn't know what he saw. He probably saw me leaning over the bed to hand him something. Kids don't know how to interpret adult stuff. You know that. Why are you being so dramatic?" That was the moment I knew something was wrong. Not just with her story, but with her. It wasn't just the denial. It was the way she **p***nized reason. Like I was crazy for even asking. Like I should feel guilty for believing our own child. She had an excuse locked and loaded. She didn't miss a beat. She even tried to flip it. "Honestly, if you trusted me at all, you wouldn't even be asking this." she said, turning away. But maybe that's the real issue. And just like that, the conversation ended. Or rather, she ended it. Like closing a book mid-sentence. I walked away without saying another word. But inside, something had shifted. Deeply. It wasn't just the image of her on top of another man. It was the way she lied. The way she didn't blink. The way she turned the whole thing into my problem. And what scared me the most? It worked. For a moment, I actually doubted myself. Wondered if I was overreacting. Wondered if maybe I was just being paranoid. That's what manipulation does. It rewrites reality. But Miles, he had no agenda. No filter. No reason to lie. And the way he said it, so casual. So unaffected. Like he was describing what he had for lunch. Kids don't make up stories like that out of nowhere. Not that detailed. Not that specific. And what kind of mother jumps straight to spinning it instead of just asking what he said? Instead of worrying about what her son saw? That night, I lay in bed next to her. She fell asleep quickly, breathing steady, turned to the wall like she always does. Like I wasn't even there. I stared at the ceiling for hours, the dark pressing in, my heart pounding with questions I wasn't ready to answer. I thought about Alex. I thought about the red hoodie. I thought about the way she didn't flinch when I brought it up. And I thought about my son. What kind of damage does it do to a kid to see something like that, and then be told it never happened? I didn't know yet what I was going to do, but I knew this. Something had cracked wide open, and no amount of laughing, deflecting, or blaming me was going to patch it up again. After that Sunday, everything looked the same on the outside, but nothing felt the same on the inside. I didn't bring it up again. I didn't accuse her. I didn't make a scene. I just observed. She thought it had blown over. I let her think that. But the more I sat with what Miles said, the more the puzzle pieces started to click together. Pieces I'd ignored or brushed off or explained away because that's what you do when you want to believe the best about someone. I remembered the first time I noticed something strange. It was months ago. She had started covering more evening shifts at the gym where she worked. She wasn't a trainer. She handled front desk stuff, scheduling, member accounts, but suddenly, they needed her after hours. At first, I didn't question it. We needed the extra income, and she said she was helping out a friend who was going on maternity leave. Made sense. Seemed kind. Seemed like her. But then it kept going. Every other night, sometimes back to back. Sometimes she'd say she was exhausted, but then come home wired, talkative, like she just had a great time. Sometimes she'd say she was too tired to eat, but she'd come back wearing lipstick I didn't remember her leaving with. And then there was the phone. She used to leave it lying around. We used to scroll through memes together or share funny messages from coworkers. There were no secrets. Until one day, I noticed the screen started going black the second I walked into a room. She started setting it face down, turning off previews. One time, she jumped when I reached for it to check the time and snapped, "I need to charge it." She'd never snapped at me over something so small before. And then, one night, she came home with a different scent on her. Not hers. Not mine. It hit me the second she walked in the door. "New perfume?" I asked casually. She looked startled for a split second. "Oh no, that must have been one of the guys. Someone sprayed deodorant in the back room. It got everywhere. I didn't push it, but my stomach twisted." That was the moment I remember feeling the first flicker of real doubt. But I told myself I was being jealous, overreacting, insecure. She was still sleeping next to me, still asking how my day was, still packing Miles' lunch and calling her mom and doing yoga in the living room. She hadn't changed, right? Except she had. It had been slow, subtle, like a background process running in her brain that I didn't have access to. And then there was the laptop. We used to share one. For years, we both logged in with the same password. April 2014. The month we got married. It was dumb and sentimental, and I loved that we kept it. Until she changed it. I found out by accident. I tried to log in one day to check on an insurance claim, and suddenly it wouldn't let me in. When I asked her about it, she played it cool. "Oh yeah, I had to reset it. IT security stuff. I'll send it to you." She never did. and I never brought it up again. But from that day on, it wasn't our laptop anymore. It was hers. Still, even with all those things, each of them small, almost defensible on their own, I didn't truly confront anything. Not out loud. Not even to myself. Until Miles told me what he saw. After that, everything I had ignored turned into blinking red lights I couldn't unsee. One night, I stayed up late and replayed the last few months in my mind like a movie I'd slept through the first time. All the nights she left without saying goodbye. The group texts she would laugh at, only to get suddenly quiet when I asked what was so funny. The way she'd say, "Uncle Alex stopped by for a minute," when I'd see his truck out front for a full hour. The way she never wanted to plan anything with my side of the family anymore, but always had time for his. I started writing things down. Not because I was planning anything yet, but because I didn't trust myself to remember it all. I wrote dates, times, questions that didn't have answers. I even started noting how often Alex showed up in conversation. He came up more than I realized. Little comments. "Alex said that joke you made about the soup was hilarious." Or, "Alex thinks that song you like is so overplayed." Nothing huge. Just subtle, constant presence. He had somehow become part of our daily rhythm, and I hadn't even noticed. I think the part that hurt the most was realizing how much faith I had given her, blind, generous faith, and how little effort it had taken for her to take advantage of it. Even now, I wanted to believe there was some other explanation. Maybe Alex had stopped by to drop something off. Maybe Miles misread it. Maybe she really was just fixing the shelf. Maybe she wasn't laughing because she was mocking me. Maybe she just couldn't believe I thought so little of her. But deep down, I knew those were all just stories I was telling myself to delay what came next. And what came next was the camera. Started with a thought I couldn't shake. What if she really was lying? What if I was putting my son in a house where someone was sneaking around behind our backs? Someone I had once called a friend. I didn't install the camera out of revenge. I need to be clear about that. It wasn't to catch her in the act. It was to stop the madness in my own head. To finally have something solid. One way or the other. I ordered a small, motion-activated camera online. Took 2 days to arrive. I installed it in the hallway, angled just enough to catch the bedroom door and the front entrance. It didn't see everything, but it didn't have to. She didn't know it was there. In the meantime, I kept playing along. I made breakfast, did the dishes, asked how her gym was doing, smiled when she mentioned Alex. I pretended I didn't notice the way she'd go quiet whenever I entered a room. I stopped bringing up Miles' comment. I let her think I had moved on. And every night, when she went to bed, I checked the footage. Nothing unusual happened the first night, or the second. But on the third night, Wednesday, just before 11 p.m., I got a motion alert on my phone. I opened the feed with shaking hands. And there it was. I stared at the phone screen, thumb hovering over the play button. The alert was still fresh, just a few minutes old. The camera feed showed the hallway bathed in the soft glow of the nightlight we kept plugged into the socket near the baseboard. It was quiet, still, then movement. At exactly 10:47 p.m., the front door opened. Alex walked in. No knock, no doorbell, no hesitation. Just let himself in like it was his house, like he belonged there. He was wearing a dark jacket, hood down, beard trimmed, casual, relaxed. Not a trace of nerves. She met him at the doorway in pajamas. Not the frumpy kind either, the silky gray ones she used to save for anniversaries. Her hair was down, makeup lightly done, like she had gotten ready for something. They didn't speak at first, not loud enough for the mic to catch anything. But they hugged. He leaned in. She smiled. Her arms wrapped around his neck, his around her waist. The kind of hug you don't give a family friend. Then they pulled apart, and without a glance toward the kids' rooms, they went straight down the hallway, right into our bedroom. My bedroom. My stomach twisted. The camera didn't reach inside the room, but it picked up just enough. The door stayed open for a few seconds longer than it should have, and I caught a glimpse of her hand on his chest, pushing him back playfully. She laughed. Not loud, but clear. That soft laugh she used to give me when I'd steal her socks just to watch her chase me. Then the door clicked shut. The camera kept recording. The hallway went still again. But in the background, if I raised the volume and listened closely, I could hear it, movement, murmurs, her voice, muffled and low, the squeak of the bed frame, a sound I couldn't unhear. I watched the rest of the footage like a man watching a slow-motion car crash he already knows the ending to. They stayed in that room for over an hour. No interruptions. No breaks. When the door opened again, he walked out first, zipping up his jacket. She followed, hair messy, expression unreadable. They didn't kiss goodbye. Just a quick glance between them, and he left through the front door without a word. Like it was routine. Like this wasn't the first time. I didn't move for a long time after that. I just sat on the edge of the guest bed, phone still in hand, watching the hallway camera loop on silent replay. I had proof. I finally had proof. And it didn't make me feel anything close to what I expected. There was no explosion, no screaming, no urge to tear the house apart. Just a kind of cold clarity. A stillness that came after too many nights of guessing and second-guessing. After months of excuses and misdirections, and that one moment when a 6-year-old told me something adults would have taken to the grave. The lie was dead, and in its place was the truth. Ugly, undeniable, and complete. Could have barged in. I could have stormed down the hallway, kicked open the bedroom door, shouted until my throat bled. But what would that have done? What would it have fixed? They would have lied. She would have scrambled for explanations. He would have stood there, smug, with that fake sympathetic look people use when they've been caught doing something selfish. The focus would have shifted to my reaction, not their betrayal. So I didn't give her that power. Instead, I closed the app, plugged my phone into charge, and quietly started packing a bag. I moved slow, careful not to wake Miles or his little sister, Grace. I packed only what I needed. Some clothes, my laptop, charger, toothbrush. I took my wallet, my car keys, a book Miles had asked me to finish reading to him. I paused at the nightstand for a moment and looked at the framed photo of our family at the beach last summer. All 4 of us smiling. Wind in our hair. My arm around her waist. I left it behind. By the time I had everything together, it was nearly 1 a.m. I walked to the front door, placed my house keys in the small ceramic dish by the mail slot, the one she used for spare change, and left. I drove around for a while. No destination. Just the hum of the road beneath me and the noise in my head trying to rearrange itself into something that made sense. At one point, I pulled over at a 24-hour diner. Not to eat. Just to sit somewhere with light and sound and strangers who didn't know me. I stared out the window while a waitress refilled my water 3 times without asking. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just felt hollow. And in that hollow space, something else started to grow. Resolve. I didn't know what the next move would be yet, but I knew this. I wasn't going back to being the guy who made excuses for her. I wasn't going to pretend my son didn't see what he saw. I wasn't going to let her spin it into another "you're too serious" joke. That version of me died the moment Alex walked through our front door like he owned the place. By sunrise, I'd found a cheap motel a few miles out of town and checked in using cash. Just for the night. I texted my boss that I was taking a personal day, then turned my phone off completely. No calls. No messages. Not yet. I needed space. Silence. When I woke the next afternoon, I watched the footage again. Not because I needed convincing, but because I needed to remember. I needed to harden myself. The mind does strange things under pressure. It starts negotiating with truth. Starts softening it, making room for doubt. I couldn't let that happen. I saved the footage to a private drive. Backed it up 3 different ways. Labeled the folder plainly. Wednesday_10:47 p.m. No dramatic title. No anger. Just facts. I stayed away for 2 full days. Didn't check in. Didn't text. Didn't tell her where I was. I let her sit with the silence. Let her imagine whatever she wanted to imagine. And when I finally turned my phone back on, it was exactly what I expected. 43 missed calls. Dozens of texts. Some frantic. Some angry. Some pretending nothing had happened. A few were from her mother, asking if I was okay. One from Alex. Just one. A single message that said, "Didn't mean for things to get messy. Let's talk like men." I didn't respond. I just stared at that last one until the screen dimmed and went black. By the time I made it back to the house, I had a plan. No screaming. No scenes. No chances for her to manipulate the moment. I rang the bell instead of walking in. She answered the door slowly, cautiously, like I was someone she barely recognized. Her eyes were puffy, hair tied back. She was wearing one of my hoodies. For a moment, she tried to smile. "Hey, you okay?" I didn't answer. I pulled out my phone, opened the video, and handed it to her. She watched the first 15 seconds. That was all it took. Her face dropped. She didn't speak. She didn't gasp. She didn't even blink. When the screen went dark, she handed the phone back and said the words I'll never forget. It didn't mean anything. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Please let me explain." Just that. It didn't mean anything. I nodded. "That's the last lie you get to tell me." Then I stepped past her, walked to the kids' room, and told them to pack a bag. When I left with the kids that night, I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I didn't even look back at her as I walked out. I just took the truth with me, and the two people in that house who still trusted me without question. Miles kept asking if we were going somewhere fun. He didn't understand. Grace didn't ask anything. She just clung to my leg like she always did when she was sleepy. I packed enough clothes for a few nights and drove to my sister's place across town. She let us in without a word. Just hugged me, looked at my face, didn't ask questions. I needed that. I slept on her couch that night while Miles and Grace took over her guest room. I barely closed my eyes. Every time I drifted off, my brain replayed the sound of her voice saying, "It didn't mean anything." That sentence looped in my mind like a cruel joke. No apology, no remorse, just dismissal. The next morning, I turned my phone off again. I didn't want to see her name, didn't want to read whatever new version of the truth she was spinning. I wasn't ready to fight. I wasn't ready to defend myself against her reaction to being caught. Because that's what it always came down to with her, controlling the narrative. But when I finally turned my phone back on 2 days later, I realized she'd already started. Dozens of missed calls, texts, voicemails, all from her mom, from mutual friends. Each one more dramatic than the last. "Where are you? I'm worried sick. Please just let me know you're okay. The kids need stability. I told Mom you just needed space. Please don't do anything stupid." Stupid. That word caught my eye. I knew what she meant. She was laying the groundwork, painting the picture of the unstable husband who ran off. Of course, it was the perfect setup. If I stayed gone too long, she could start telling people I'd abandoned the family, that I was unwell. I scrolled through the texts in disbelief. One from her mother said, "Emily told me you had a breakdown. Please let us help you." A breakdown. I hadn't cried. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't sent a single threatening message. I hadn't even told anyone outside of my sister what happened. And yet, somehow, I was already the one being painted as unstable. She was fast. I'll give her that. She didn't waste time. By the third day, I was getting messages from mutual friends, people I hadn't spoken to in months, asking if I was okay. One said, "Hey man, just heard you disappeared? Let me know if you need anything." Disappeared. Like I was some ghost that had wandered off into the woods instead of a father who caught his wife cheating and took his kids to protect them. That's when I realized this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about control. She wasn't panicked because I left. She was panicked because I took the power to tell the story with me. When I returned to the house, it wasn't to talk. It wasn't to reconcile. It was to get more clothes for the kids and grab some documents I needed: birth certificates, insurance, the camera footage backup drive. I didn't knock this time. I walked in like it was still my home. She was sitting at the dining room table when I opened the door. She looked up like she'd been waiting for me. Calm. Icy. Like I had somehow been the one to wrong her. "So," she said, "you're finally back. No hug. No tears. No, how are the kids?" Just that, like I was the one who had something to explain. "I'm here for a few things," I said, not sitting down. "We're staying at my sister's." She nodded slowly. I figured. You blocked my number. You lied, I replied. She stood, arms crossed. I told you it didn't mean anything. I don't know why you're blowing this up like it's the end of the world. That line hit me harder than I expected. Blowing this up. Like I had created the disaster. Like I had walked into that bedroom with Alex and made a mistake. I didn't answer. I walked past her, grabbed what I needed, and paused at the threshold of our kids' room. There were still drawings on the wall. Stuffed animals neatly tucked into Grace's bed. A Lego set half-finished on Miles' table. That's what she had risked. Not just a marriage. Family. A childhood. As I walked back through the living room, she tried one more time. Mark, she said, using that soft tone I hadn't heard in months. You're overreacting. You're not thinking clearly. I turned and looked her dead in the eyes. I've never been more clear. And I left. 2 days later, I got an email from the school. Apparently, she had called them and told them I might try to pick up the kids, without notifying her. She claimed I was acting erratic and needed to be monitored. That's when I realized this wasn't just her covering her tracks anymore. She was preparing for war. I called the school, clarified everything, and asked them to add my emergency contact info to the top of the list. They were polite, understanding, and professional. But I could already sense how messy this was about to get. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I hired a lawyer. His name was Brennan, referred by a friend of my sister's. Straight-talking guy, no fluff. I showed him the footage, told him the full story. He didn't blink. She's trying to frame you, he said, flipping through the messages. And if she keeps escalating, we'll need to stay ahead of her. But you're already in a stronger position than you think. We started gathering everything. *TS. Emails, texts, dates. Her sudden shift in behavior. The password changes. The excuses. The cover stories. Even Miles' little drawing. A page from his sketchbook showing 3 stick figures in the bedroom. One labeled, Mom, one Alex, and one with a small sad face outside the door. The man with the black beard. That sketch hit harder than anything else. Not because it was evidence, but because it showed what kids notice. What they remember. What they carry. It wasn't just a mistake for her anymore. It was a pattern. A deliberate, repeated betrayal. And now she was trying to rewrite the narrative in real time. But the truth had already outpaced her. At that point, I stopped responding to her messages. I let my lawyer handle everything. We filed the initial custody paperwork. Temporary arrangements. Weekend visits. A formal request for her to stop contacting the school without notifying me first. Her reaction? A social media post. Of course. A long, dramatic paragraph under a selfie of her with the kids from a beach trip we took 3 years ago. Captioned, doing my best to hold it together for them. Some things don't make sense, but a mother's love never changes. The comments poured in. Stay strong, girl. Sending love. Men can be so unstable. If he walked out on you and the kids, that's on him. I didn't reply, didn't comment, didn't set the record straight. I didn't need to, because soon the facts would speak for themselves. After the beach photo post, things moved fast. She didn't slow down. If anything, she doubled down. The first real punch came 3 days later. My lawyer forwarded me an email she'd sent to the court clerk, a formal complaint. In it, she claimed I had taken the kids without her consent and refused all communication. She painted it like I had stormed out in a rage, made erratic decisions, and was now keeping the children from her out of spite. She attached *TS, cherry-picked messages that made her look reasonable and me like I'd gone dark out of nowhere. The part where I had confronted her? Gone. The part where I showed her the video? Not a word. It was a sanitized, curated version of events where she was the abandoned mother trying to hold her family together, and I was the ghost who vanished. She had always been good at twisting stories, but this was next level. I didn't respond. Brennan advised against it. Let her show her hand, he said. The more she tries to paint you as unstable, the more reckless she'll get. And he was right. 2 days later, She tried to pick the kids up from school early. Claimed there was a family emergency. Luckily, I'd already talked to the principal. She was polite but firm. Told my wife that all pickups had to be confirmed by both parents under the temporary custody agreement. My wife left the building with a fake smile and fire in her eyes. That night, she posted again. This time with a black and white photo of herself holding Grace on her hip and Miles in the background playing with a toy truck. Caption: "Missing my babies. When you love someone, you never stop fighting for them, even when your heart is breaking." The comments: "Predictable. Take him to court, sis. He doesn't deserve those babies. Praying for strength. Praying for strength? From what? Being held accountable." I kept scrolling. Then I saw something that made my blood freeze. She had tagged Alex. The same Alex from the video. The same man she had told our son was like an uncle. She tagged him under the caption, "Thankful for the people who have stood by me through all of this." I don't know what disgusted me more, that she tagged him publicly, or that some people probably thought it meant he was just being supportive. A friend, not a co-conspirator. Not the man my son had caught in our bedroom. Not the guy who had helped blow a hole in our family. I couldn't help myself. I clicked his profile. He had gone private. Coward. But it didn't matter. I had what I needed. Proof of their continued connection, their communication, and now her attempt to pass him off as a pillar of her support. She was building a case. Carefully. Methodically. And I had to do the same. So I went back to the files I'd already started collecting. I had the footage, the messages, the social media posts, the missed calls, the notes from the school, and the drawing. That one stuck with me more than I expected. It was a crude sketch, drawn in crayon with stick figures and oversized heads. But it told the story better than any lawyer could. 3 figures in the room. One labeled Mom. One the man with the black beard. And one outside the door, small, alone with sad eyes, labeled simply, Me. I had asked Miles about it casually a few nights before. I didn't want to push too hard, didn't want to turn him into a witness in a war he never asked to be part of. But I needed to understand what he remembered. "Buddy," I said while tucking him in, "that drawing you made? Can you tell me what it was about?" He looked up, eyes big. "It was the day I went home for my Lego," he said. "Remember?" I nodded. "I saw Mom with Alex. I wasn't supposed to be there. She looked really mad when she saw me. Did she say anything to you?" He nodded. "She told me not to tell you." That hit harder than the video. Harder than anything. She hadn't just cheated. She had told our son to lie to his father. That crossed a line I didn't even know I had. After that, I made a decision. I wasn't just fighting for custody. I was fighting for protection. I filed for full legal custody. Requested that she only get supervised visitation until a psychological evaluation could be completed. My lawyer agreed. "She's trying to undermine you publicly, but she's not being smart about it. That video, that drawing, those are anchors. You're not being vindictive. You're being a father protecting his children." Still, it wasn't easy. It never is. Because no matter how clear the facts are, there's always doubt. There's always someone who wants to believe both sides are to blame. That marriages are complicated. That no one's perfect. People said it in hushed tones, thinking I wouldn't hear. Maybe they just grew apart. He should have tried harder. Maybe she just made one mistake. One mistake. What's one mistake? A kiss? A lie? Is it still one mistake when it lasts for months? When it involves your friend? When it happens under your roof in your bed while your children sleep down the hall? Is it still one mistake when she tells your son to lie? That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. That's a person who thought they could have everything and lose nothing. But she was losing now. Her story started to fray. One of her friends, someone I barely knew, DM'd me one night, said she was sorry. Said she had seen the video and that what Emily was doing wasn't right. She told me Emily had confided in her during a trip to Miami last year and hinted she had cheated back then too. Apparently not the first time. Just the first time she got caught. Then I got another message. This time from a guy she dated before we got married. He said he wasn't looking to stir up drama, but he had seen my post, the one I had finally made after weeks of silence, and he wanted to say something. She used to tell me I was paranoid too, said I imagined things. I thought I was going crazy, but now, reading your story, I think she just never stopped being that person. That's when it hit me. This wasn't personal. Not in the way I thought. I hadn't caused her to betray me. I hadn't failed her. I hadn't missed the signs because I was blind. She was just that good at hiding. Until she wasn't. And then, the biggest twist of all, Alex dumped her. I don't know what triggered it. Maybe the attention. Maybe he realized she wasn't as single as she made herself out to be. Maybe he saw the custody filing and realized he didn't want to get dragged into it. But he bailed. Just disappeared. She tried to spin it. Said she ended things. Claimed he was too emotionally immature. That he couldn't handle a real woman. Classic. Except now she was alone. Her posts changed. Less righteous. More sad. She started using quotes, self-love, growth, strength through pain. All generic. All hollow. Then one night, she showed up at my sister's house. Unannounced. Hair pulled back in a messy bun. Hoodie. No makeup. She looked tired. Shaky. Less like the composed manipulator I'd come to expect, and more like a person unraveling. But she didn't come to apologize. She came to accuse. You're ruining my name, she said as soon as I opened the door. No, hello. No, can I talk? Just that. Like I had broken her world. I didn't argue. I didn't invite her in. I just looked her in the eye and said, I didn't ruin anything. You just finally ran out of places to hide. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked back to her car without a word. I watched the taillights disappear down the street. That was the night I filed the full custody motion. Once I posted my story, no emotion, just facts. The silence broke. People messaged me privately. One coworker said she'd hooked up with another guy on a trip to Miami. A guy she dated before me said she pulled the same manipulation with him. Even Alex, of all people, reached out. Said he didn't know she was lying to both of us. Said he thought he was the only one. He dumped her. Just like that. Her social media went quiet. No quotes. No fake positivity. Then one night she showed up. Tired, messy, angry. She didn't apologize. She accused me. You're ruining my name, she said. I didn't flinch. I didn't even answer. I just closed the door. The next morning, I filed for full custody. In court, she wore the mask. White blouse, soft tone, mother of the year. But the judge saw the full picture, lies, evasion, and gaslighting. The evidence spoke. I was granted full custody. She got supervised visits every other weekend. 3 months later, I moved into a modest apartment. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. The kids laughed again. Miles stopped waking up in the middle of the night. She sent a message recently. Maybe we could talk sometime? I left it on read. Because the man she thought would stay, he never came back.